evidence to get a conviction. That's for the prosecutors to weigh. But there's certainly much that needs to be looked at in great detail by the Department of Justice. No question about that.
So one issue that's been a point of debate, and Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, speaking to Lester Holt earlier today, addressed it, the idea of a criminal referral from your committee to the DOJ. He said, well, you know, it's up to the committee. It's not going to affect their investigation. I know some committee members are torn on this. Have you changed your view on that? Should the committee make a definitive statement at the end of these hearings, at the end of your work, on whether there should be a criminal referral to the DOJ based on what you've discovered?
We actually haven't had a big discussion on that yet as a committee. As the Attorney General mentioned, there's no real statute that provides for a so-called criminal referral. That doesn't mean we shouldn't send a letter and give them our viewpoint. You know, I don't know what the committee will decide, but I'm confident that it will be after we've got a little bit more of the evidence that is still coming in, witnesses still being interviewed. And as with everything in this committee, we'll have a thorough discussion, and it's been a good experience because, you know, we've got members who start out in one position, but we listen to each other. We evaluate the evidence. Sometimes we're persuaded by our colleagues. So there's been no acrimony. We generally reach a consensus, and I imagine we will do so in this case as well.
Last quick question. We're almost out of time, but I have to ask about Secret Service emails. You have said you have quite a few concerns about the Secret Service.
El continente más fascinante del planeta se encuentra rodeado por el océano austral, cuyo límite externo es una intensa y fría corriente marina llamada corriente circumpolar antártica. Esta corriente fluye de oeste a este, conectando los océanos Atlántico, Pacífico e Índico, permitiendo el intercambio de aguas cálidas y frías entre ellos, funcionando como un importante regulador del clima del planeta. Con 4.500 kilómetros de diámetro, el continente antártico tiene en promedio una capa de hielo de unos 2 kilómetros de alto, aunque en algunos puntos tiene casi 5. Cualquier cambio de temperatura que ocurra en la Antártida impactará en otros puntos del mundo, como un efecto mariposa, generando sequías intensas o lluvias torrenciales, entre muchas otras catástrofes. Para conocer el pasado e interpretar los cambios actuales en este continente, los científicos estudian distintas evidencias. En esta aventura, tenés que realizar las siguientes tareas. Recogerás un resto fósil de amonites para poder ponerle edad a las rocas. Extraerás una muestra testigo de hielo para estudiar e inferir los cambios climáticos en los últimos miles de años. Buscarás un resto fósil que nos permitirá comprender el vínculo entre la península antártica y los demás continentes del mundo.
Which we need that to happen. So there's a lot of questions here, and I hope that we can get answers to all of them.
We will have to leave it there. We're out of time. California Congresswoman, member of the January 6th Committee, Zoe Lofgren, thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Republican Congressman and Trump acolyte Matt Gaetz went out of his way recently to bash Mike Pence's chance at a presidential run in 2024. The vice president's former chief of staff didn't have any trouble offering up this pretty stinging response.
Week in D.C., and there seems to be a divide between the two of you on your outlook on what the future of the conservative movement might be. So do you think that this divide extends to the rest of the conservative movement, like the general public, and what do you think we can do to alleviate it?
Well, I will tell you that I couldn't be more proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. So I don't know that our movement is that divided. I don't know that the president and I differ on issues. But we may differ on focus.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? That was former Vice President Pence today answering questions during a speech to young conservatives in D.C. Those comments come less than a month since we heard this damning January 6th testimony from a former top aide to Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, about Trump's reaction to the mob chanting "Hang Mike Pence" that day.
I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, "Mark, we need to do something more." They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong."
He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. Since then, we've also heard evidence saying once again that he and Trump don't differ on issues, they just differ on focus. Like how Donald Trump was focused on sitting back and allowing a violent mob to almost kill Mike Pence and his security detail. And Mike Pence is focused on talking about anything else but that. Still, while Pence may be doing his best to forget about the events of January the 6th, the people who were around him that day don't have that same luxury. Within the last 24 hours, we learned that two of Mike Pence's senior advisors, his chief of staff, Mark Short, and his legal counsel, Greg Jacobs, have both now testified before a federal grand jury as part of the Justice Department's investigation into January the 6th. As Mike Pence tries to rehabilitate himself among the denizens of MAGA land because he has some mad belief that he could be the GOP nominee in 2024, his former aides are actively cooperating with the federal investigation into 1-6. So what does that mean for Mike Pence himself? Joining us now is Tom Lobianco, politics reporter at Yahoo News, who's covered Mike Pence since his time as governor of Indiana and is the author of Piety and Power, Mike Pence and the Taking of the White House. Tom, thanks for being here. You know more about Mike Pence and his inner circle than probably any other reporter. Do you think those two aides got Mike Pence's blessing before testifying for the Justice Department for the grand jury?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a tight-knit circle. It's one of the tightest operations I've ever covered. And nothing happens without the boss's approval. So that, my guess is absolutely yes. Nobody's confirmed that. But, if you're seeing Mark Short testify, he's the only person closer to Pence than Mark Short is Karen Pence.
We all know how Mike feels about Karen Pence. In your piece today about Mike Pence for Yahoo News, you quote a top Trump advisor keeping tabs on Pence, who said of the former vice president, quote, "They're very strategic about when he pops his head up. His path to the White House, if he has one, and I'd argue he does not, is to do exactly what he's been doing." What do you think that aide meant by that? What is Mike Pence doing right now? And does he have a chance of being the 2024 Republican nominee? I feel like I have more of a chance of being the GOP president.